volume it's going right now? This is Mainstream Metaphysics with your host, Nick Newmont.
Oh, well, good evening. Welcome to Mainstream Metaphysics. It is Tuesday night in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock here on the West Coast. Welcome to another show on the Newmont Consciousness Network and here in the studios of Conejo Valley Talk Radio. We have Ed Hunt behind everything, manning the show. He works hard. James Brown was not the hardest working man in show business. It's Ed Hunt. Come on, let's tell the truth. And with me, my co-host tonight, returning to the show, Lisa Allen.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Good to have you back.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so thrilled that you're back because we tried via remote to have Lisa on the show a few weeks ago,
Yes.
and for whatever reason, it just wasn't cooperating. So thank you for being patient and circling back.
Oh,
and being
absolutely.
On the show.
I want to be in person actually more than just on the remote anyway.
Right.
But I needed to know that wasn't like really a possibility with my phone or whatever it was, or the laptop. So I know that there was something else really wacky do.
There was, and
Yeah.
we are going to talk about astrology tonight. You know, last week when Carmen was on the show, you know, we talked about the numerology and what we saw for 2024, and of course from a financial and real estate perspective. Tonight, Lisa and I are going to talk about a few things. And not the least of which, what's going on with Lisa. She's got a sort of an announcement tonight, which is really cool, that I've been privy to. And we're going to look at what's in the stars for 2024 from your perspective. Now, here's what's really fascinating. When a couple astrologers like Lisa and myself that are very seasoned and get to talk privately, you know, that would be like you trying to watch the weather report, wanting to know if it's going to rain or shine, but they start talking about all the isobars up there and all that. We are not going to do that. We are going to talk in everyday language with some references so you know what to do and how to handle, 2024 and what's in store for you. But before we do that, I'm really excited, so you can tell I really want to get into this. So a few announcements. Audrey will be doing the show tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, Conscious Mind Tripping, here from the studios. And then, of course, what we are excited about, and we is everybody at the center, Lisa, Ed back there. This coming Saturday from 11 to 5, we have a holiday shopping open house at the center.
Super exciting.
We are excited.
Yeah.
And Audrey has been very busy decorating. The place is looking incredible. She does a better job every year of decorating. And to give you an idea of some of the tasty things that we have, to tease them. So along with all the candles that we make, we have a selection of holiday candles that are limited edition. And I'm going to turn, this is called White Christmas, and I'm going to turn it so I don't spill stuff out. But you can see Audrey is so genius with this, and these are crystals that are embedded in the candle. So it looks like
garnets and peridot. Yes. Wow, that's fabulous.
And Audrey is so good at how she does this stuff.
Wow.
And we have
Very
have
cool.
one at the center with different colored sprinkles in it, and the candle is called Holiday Cookie.
Oh, wow. Wonderful.
Wait till you see those.
That is so cute. It's like cupcake candles or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, when you go to make a cake from the grocery store and it's birthday cake and those kind of confetti, funfetti, right? There we go. My mouth is watering. We're talking about food.
Yeah,
and then we have incredible crystals at the center. We have a wonderful selection of quartz generators, quartz towers available. Just got another shipment in.
Wow.
And then
that one's a pretty piece.
Yes, it's got some
Very
incredible
nice.
inclusions in it.
Yeah.
And then one of Ed Hunt's favorite minerals mine too.
Lapis lazuli.
Lapis lazuli.
Wow,
Look
that's a gorgeous
at this.
piece.
It's
My
like a big
goodness.
spade. And
Wow.
great prices on it. Look at this when we show it.
Almost like a diamond.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Look at this.
That
And you can
is
see
amazing.
the gold in there is pyrite.
Wow.
This is it's an
Yeah.
exquisite piece.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I've never seen anything like that.
Look at the sheen on that. Oh my God. Then
Wow.
we just got in something that we love to carry for the holidays. And there's various forms of selenite. And we love this, and it's still in the cellophane. It's called Utah Iceberg Selenite. See, it's somewhat transparent,
Wow.
and it looks like sheets of ice. And we sell a lot of this at the holidays
Wow.
because people decorate their home. It looks like ice.
Wow.
So look at that. But it's in the cellophane to protect it.
Oh, sure.
Because
selenite.
selenite is a member of the gypsum family, and if selenite gets
Super
wet,
fragile.
it'll melt. And then there's one more.
Yeah.
And we have
Wow.
different sizes. Great prices. And if you come this Saturday and shop, you will get 20% off everything in the store.
Like the already low prices?
Yes. Wow. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So look at this.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've seen calcite similar to that, but never selenite. That's really awesome because selenite is something that cleanses and you don't have to cleanse it, and that's lovely.
Right. And
Wow.
and you're right, Lisa. And
Yeah.
the selenite and calcite, they don't take on the negative energies; they transmute them.
They transmute them. Yep.
So yes, this coming Saturday, 11 to 5 at the Newmont Center. If you would like more information, you can respond here on Facebook or email me at nnewmont@gmail.com, or just call the center if you want to talk to me, 818-865-8770. And it's all day. There's refreshments. We're going to have a lot of fun and get your holiday shopping started, especially, and we have fountains this year
Really?
for sale. Yes,
Ooh.
we have fountains. So we have a beautiful array of all kinds of goodies there at the center.
I'm so happy about that. I can't wait for the open house.
We're excited. I mean, we're like kids about it and
I
been having
know.
fun decorating.
Yeah.
So we are we're going to look at a few things when it comes to astrology, but for a moment, let's talk about you. I know eventually we're going to show charts about what happened, but
Sure.
got this text from you today where something just dropped in your lap.
Literally. I got a text an email about an opportunity for a work trade agreement where I can obtain a Master Gardener certificate from Paul Wheaton's permaculture program up in northern, like it's in Montana, and it's north of Missoula where the property is. He has 220 acres, and he has many like buildings that are like WOFADI buildings, and he has rocket mass heaters, and he has all of this really, low tech yet very inventive permaculture things that he has in process. And he has a lot of community that is already building all kinds of things year round since he's owned the property. And he's had like big giant permaculture conferences at his place and everything.
Educate
So,
me if I may.
It's totally fine. So
what is permaculture?
Permaculture, well, at least the way that I view permaculture, it has to do with organic, it has to do with sustainable, and oftentimes it could even renew itself so that you are not having to work all the time on the garden. So in other words, it's kind of like creating a food forest.
Now, is it all outside or is it enclosed?
So some of it's outside, some of it's enclosed. And if you guys are ever interested in some of the inspiration that came about for Paul Wheaton in order to do this, there is an amazing guy named Sepp Holzer, Seppholzer. Look him up on YouTube. He is not just a gardener. he is a shaman. He's a druid. There's something going on with him. He's very magical. He ended up growing without chemicals, without greenhouses or anything, an orange tree on the side of a hill, like in a place really cold, kind of similar to Montana. And nobody thought that he could do it. And then when people have asked him how he did it, he says, "Oh, I just talked to the tree and told it, hey, deal with it." He's amazing.
How long are you going to be there?
So interestingly, I need to be there for 6 weeks in order to do the trade that manifests the obtaining of the certificate for the master gardening. So I'll be learning not just regular gardening. I'll be learning permaculture gardening. I'll be learning sustainable gardening. I'll be learning organic gardening. I'll be learning food forest regeneration type of stuff. And it matches up with my master herbalist training pretty well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Right.
Yeah, and I've followed Paul Wheaton and his work for like the last 15 years at least. And I mean, it's been background for me, but just Thanksgiving morning when I saw his email, and a little bit of foreshadowing here, when Saturn went direct, it was on my midheaven, and I'll show you that in a chart later. But I knew something was going to be changing with my career, but I just didn't know what it was. Well, sometimes you have to wait till an aspect happens, and that aspect was the sun making an exact square to when Saturn has went direct now at 0 Pisces. So we just had the sun cross 0 Sagittarius. And then we have Mars in Sagittarius now as well. That's when everything really solidly started going. And I literally just said, I'm going to Montana. I'm taking all my stuff to San Diego. And when I talked to you yesterday about...
You put everything in storage.
I'm putting everything in storage. I have 2 more trips still. Because I've, been living for about a year here in Los Angeles. So, and I will come back.
Right.
It's not a permanent move, but I will be up there until, and so we were thinking about like April-ish, because I also have friends that want me to use my new permaculture things and do their house over in Emigrant, and they have friends that are doing all of their permaculture things, and so they have, and I've already worked on some of their apple trees and some of that and putting nets around them so that the birds don't get to them. But I'm hoping to learn something like that will really be kind of a hands-off and just let them grow in a food forest kind of situation. And so they want me to like be able to do some of this stuff so that by the time that the growing season happens, they'll have all of their stuff happening. So I was looking ahead at the April 20th chart with Jupiter-Uranus when everything changes. And I think that it's very interesting that even in my life, how Jupiter-Uranus could work in Taurus, how fitting is permaculture, gardening, like unique, and inventive, the Uranus part, and then Jupiter, opportunity, and then Taurus, the gardening part.
Well, there's a lot that...
It's amazing.
When we look at the charts, there's things that are going to affect everybody out there that we're going to bring up, and what this means to you. And the question I have for you is, are you really ready for winter?
Yeah. So you guys don't know about this about me. I'll share. So 2 years ago, I had a similar offer for a permaculture idea. It was not done by people with as much experience as Paul. So Paul has he's an engineer, and he's just, he it's like this, everything is like in line. The other people that were handling it, they were not like as regimented and getting things done. So there was a lot of fallout, if you will. It just didn't work. But when I got there, I was staying in a garage, and it did not have a rocket mass heater in it. So talk about cold. I was sleeping outside in -18 with lots of things on. And so, and I was born in Montana, so maybe that helps. I don't know, but my blood is pretty thin being in California. But I lived there for 10 years from 2003 until 2000. 14 pretty much. I lived in Montana like
So you know
full
what
time.
it's like.
So yeah, I know what it's like.
Well, good luck on your
Got my
venture.
Chuka boots, got them packed,
Yeah, you're going to need that and more.
I will need more.
So we want to present some things for the viewing audience and give you sort of a sneak peek at what we are looking at. Now, when you look at astrology charts, there's so much to look at, and we're going to focus on the fine points because you can go on and on forever when you do this. And I think what we want to do is first bring up the chart of the USA that I ran it for today, but we know how to look at the chart and see where they're going to go.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at this chart, and this is something that Lisa and I were talking about, before the show started, and when you look at the middle wheel down toward the bottom, those of you that know how to read glyphs to some degree, you can see in red there is the moon at 14 degrees of Pisces and the sun at 19 degrees of Pisces. That is the progressed moon and the progressed sun. Now, what you need to know is that the progressed moon moves 1 degree per month, which means in 5 months, the moon is aligning with the sun, which happens every 30 years. So in other words, in real life, this is a big deal. If this was your personal chart, this is something that we would talk about and how it affects you. Now, this is in the chart of the United States of America. We're going into a whole new lunar cycle. Now, the cycle that before new moon, okay, and every cycle lasts 3 3/4 years, roughly, we're in the balsamic phase. And this is the best way I can say this. The more the moon moves closer to the sun, which is new moon, the darker it gets, balsamic moon. And to say for the past 3 years that we have been in the dark, okay,
Yeah.
is one of the
Very.
best ways to articulate the balsamic moon with Pisces coming up on the sun, and on top of it, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac.
Absolutely.
Which means we are really finishing
Definitely.
some old business here. Now, the third house is how we think. It's short distance travel. It is neighbors. It's people. It's communication. And to have the moon cross the sun, and we've already talked about, you already mentioned April, okay?
Yes.
So this is going to happen around April, okay? Right? Because we're in November now, and you go December, January, February, March, April.
Right.
All right?
Right.
I haven't pinpointed the day,
Yeah.
but that's close
It's
enough.
close enough, and we already have the Jupiter-Uranus
So
happening on the 20th. So
Right. And what's going to happen is the people are going to come out of the dark. Remember in The Wizard of Oz when she waved the
Yes.
wand and everyone came out of the spell of the poppies?
yes,
Which that has interesting references too.
absolutely
So
Pisces.
there is, right? There is an awakening that's coming with this. And this is huge. So in other words, if you out there have been feeling like you've been kept in the dark, and a lot of people do feel like that, so as this happens, still in Pisces in 5 months, and then of course 11 months after that the moon goes into Aries, but that's too much to talk about yet.
Yeah.
But to have this alignment in the house of people, said people are going to come out of the dark. Now, what's supposed to happen, and we do talk about spiritual growth. Pisces is ruled by Neptune. So when we look at this coming out of this period, well, Neptunian things, addictions,
Yeah.
psychology, things of that nature. We're coming out of this deep sleep.
Yeah.
By the way, Pisces rules hypnosis.
Absolutely. And also in the tarot, the moon card is resonant of Pisces as well, and the hanged man with Neptune. So there is resonance of like this stillness, this sleep, this confusion that is happening.
Right.
And I believe that along with the Jupiter, Uranus, and I use Jupiter as the ruler of Pisces because I'm a classical astrologer, or at least I do the rulers that way. I think that, like with Uranus, I think that April has a potential to be a huge awakening time.
It sure does. And, and when you look at in the chart of the United States, what will happen in April, Jupiter and Uranus will align in the 6th house, which means there's some kind of repair when it comes to the day-to-day of work and duties and things like that. So there is this awakening that's coming with this alignment. And I don't look at the chart of the U.S. on a frequent basis.
No, I don't either.
But I did today, and it is a form of a spiritual awakening. So if you were having a reading with me and we talked about the balsamic phase going into new moon, what I would talk to you about on a personal level is sowing seeds of consciousness. That in that period of your life, you may be third eye blind, you may be feeling like you're in the dark, but the more you work on your spiritual self, when the moon is approaching the sun, you'll come out on the other end, and whatever those seeds you planted then start to sprout in the 3 3/4 years that the moon is in new moon phase. I'm telling you, if you feel like you've been lulled to sleep, you're going to wake up in April.
Yeah, and people are going to wake up in various ways. So I guess I'm waking up a little early because of the Thanksgiving moment. And by the way, I have to tell you, I usually do things much earlier than everybody else. Okay, maybe because I'm January 1st birthday. I don't know. It could be.
It could be.
But I was going to say also that whatever house the Pisces house is for you guys, and also the Taurus house, those are going to be important houses for you. And like, if you haven't gotten your chart read, and you need to know like what areas of life are going to be like maybe tossing you some surprises, but they're also awakening, so they're gifts there. And you may want to know what kind of gifts you're getting or what kind of things are going to be happening. For instance, if you have Pisces in your 4th house, there might be something in your home that is like where something gets, like a water feature, because that's a Pisces moment, right? Like you may get a fountain in your yard or something. I don't know. You have lots of different ways to live this energy, is what I'm trying to say. So make sure you get your reading and see like what April is going to have in store for you, and like what kind of themes you'll be looking at.
Well, one thing when we talk about going now, and you and I discussed this morning a little bit. We're a week and a half away, if that. A week away from Mercury retrograde.
Yes.
We've been stationed in Mercury retrograde, for about 10 days, roughly.
Yeah.
And because I think people have gotten too used to Mercury retrograde, because every time they get a hangnail, they'll call me, is Mercury retrograde?
Yeah, they got used to that.
Right. And then we start getting into this phrase I coined a few years ago, giving into astrological paranoia.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You still have to live your life. Look,
for sure.
I mean, right now, as we get into the holiday shopping season, you've got to shop earlier, ship earlier.
Right.
I mean, there's a way
Absolutely.
to circumvent, these foibles of Mercury retrograde. And we still have, you're referencing a lot tonight.
For sure.
Jupiter and Uranus. But Jupiter is retrograde until New Year's Eve.
Yes.
Uranus is retrograde until January 27th.
And January 1st is when Mercury goes direct. So literally the next day. So Mercury and Jupiter are changing.
Right on top of each other. One thing.
Yeah, that cannot be good for holiday travel. If you guys can do not traveling on that day, that would be probably a good idea. And I would leave a lot of room for delays, for missed flights, cancellations,
lost luggage.
And and I'm thinking about, so a lot of weather things that have been happening, I've noticed that there's a lot of water energy with Saturn and Pisces. It's not shock. Right. So guys, plan ahead with your weather and all of that stuff for holidays it just in general, okay? Like that's for everybody's chart. It doesn't matter.
Well, wait a minute. The
If you're not traveling, that's better.
Physician, heal thyself. When do you leave for Montana?
Oh, I shall. And by the way, lucky for me, I have Mercury retrograde in my natal chart.
Me too.
And I'm going back to something, so that always helps. But yes, I'm familiar with how this works. I'll be leaving around December 3rd.
Okay, soon.
Yeah,
Very soon.
like literally, I'm after and I need to leave for San Diego first because I got one more load to take. Then I have Arizona happening and see my son because I couldn't see him for Christmas. And then I will be going to Montana via Salt Lake City, which I have a friend there. And so I'll end up in Montana around the 7th or 8th.
Wow, you have a lot.
Yeah, I have a lot of planning going on.
Jeez. So let's look at your chart.
Okay, the permaculture,
Yes.
like the moment that happened. So I timed it as well as I could, in that I used 1119 because that I didn't know. There was no way to mark on the forum when I inquired about the email that I had read because they sent the email the night before. Well, I didn't have the information yet, so I wanted to get it be where like this was moving forward. So I have a time of 11:19 when they responded to me in email when I inquired about it. So that's the chart that we're looking at, and you'll see that the sun. Okay, at the top of the chart where the M with the little tail on it, the Scorpio, there's Mars in Scorpio and it's just about to leave and go into Sagittarius. But the sun is already in Sagittarius at 1 degree Sagittarius. It is exactly square Saturn. And so when that whole square happened, so Saturn, when it went direct on my midheaven, and that's a different chart, but when it went direct on my midheaven, it was definitely like I was going, so what, is happening? I had to wait for the sun to get to this place in order to get the answer. And the answer came very quickly. Once it started happening, it just flew in. So you'll notice that not only there's a square, but you'll see the trine with Neptune to the sun and all of that kind of stuff. You'll also see the trine of the North Node and Chiron and the moon in Aries, which Aries is very fast energy, and it's making the trine to the sun and Mars. So everything just went like a bolt.
So
this.
When we have astrological aspects, okay, and we read these things technically, the everyday person, how they view it is interesting is, well, are they at the effect of the planets, or do you use the planets ahead of time to plan?
And it's somewhere in between, I find, because I don't think that, like in our conscious body, that we sometimes know what our higher parts of ourselves want. And thus my surprise. But then I think spirit delights in surprise. So it's kind of both, but I feel that just being open is really like the key there. And since I was open, the whole opportunity came in. If I was just, like locked down and frustrated, I may keep being frustrated because that sun is going to square Saturn, whether I use it or not. And it's going, it could have caused me a lot of anguish, a lot of confusion, a lot of misdirection, a lot of hitting my head against a wall, which that's what I feel like I've been doing. But I've also had a 9-year, which, numerology. So I knew that like there's a lot of cycles that are ending, but I know that like things are starting to begin as well, so that it can like go into when we are retrograde free and go into January, February, when all of those retrogrades are over.
When people have had enough readings, the general public has a tendency to interpret certain angles that we talk about as not so good. And so when we're talking about squares, which are 90-degree angles,
yes,
there is a blockage there. And yes, you may go through a period where you are blocked, all right? But without squares, we wouldn't feel the challenge to overcome something so that we can attain whatever that is. And so when you look at a square like this, which is 90 degrees, and Lisa said the term trine, well, a trine is a 120 degree angle, and eventually a planet moves away and a 90 degree angle evolves into a 120 degree angle. So if you work on whatever the challenge is while your whatever planet is squared and don't run away from it, the other whatever's squaring it is going to move into the trine
later,
and you get the benefit of the hard work that occurred in the square. So it's not just the individual planets, it's also playing the angles. It's like shooting pool. You got to play the angles.
Yes. And I have plenty of squares in my natal chart, so I guess I have a lot of experience with that. And what I will say is that people with lots of squares in their chart, they definitely have to move and change and do things. They can't just have a stagnant life, but they also have so many opportunities for growth.
Right.
And so I believe that was kind of built in for me. And so if any of you that might be, oh no, I have too many squares, it's actually good for you. I just want to tell you, if you have too many trines, you become kind of lazy and boring and whatever, you know.
Well, and I'll tell you something, truer words never said, because years ago I had this client and her husband had double trines that formed like this and then like this, and was a Star of David.
Oh, wow.
And it was on paper, a blessed chart, but because Lisa is right, if you have too many trines, it can make you lazy. And this guy's job, and this goes back to like 1997, 98.
Okay, so a long time.
Right. He was a desk clerk at one of the rental car companies, making about $35,000 a year. And that was his aspirations.
And that was his life.
Yes.
Never went anywhere, never did anything other than that. Just didn't have any experiences.
He just didn't want, he wasn't motivated to go beyond that. So if you do have too many trines, it will make you lazy and complacent. And trines, this is the way I word it, you know, because in a square you do the work. But because people need analogies. They don't always understand the technicality. Trines are like all the work is done, and there's all the fruit and vegetables and the trees and the vines, but you don't go and pick them.
Well, there's something else about a trine that's really tricky. You guys need to know about this too. It can actually be too much energy to the wrong things. Like, in other words,
indulgence.
Yes, indulgence or reliance. And I'll give you an example. I had a client where they had a grand trine in water signs. And they often, and they were working on it later after I talked to them about it, but before working with me, they were like using the victim mentality in order to get what they want. So they would like make everybody else do all the work. And it was working because it was a trine. So it just came in. And then so they thought, oh, I'm just supposed to order everybody around and they do everything for me. Well, one day when, like things weren't maybe working so perfectly, because maybe by transit it was square or some other challenge happened, they had to learn a new skill. And boy, like after a trines of like, wow, that was very hard. It was very hard for that person to actually work because they didn't have it built in. They didn't build those muscles when they were younger. So it took a long time for that person in order to kind of have a better result. And I think that they would have had much better results had they had some squares in their chart to make them, if you will, work out.
Right. Yeah, and look, nobody has a perfect chart.
Nobody.
And like, for instance, my chart is all above the horizon.
Okay.
So I have no oppositions. Well, no planet one side the other. You know what my astrology teacher told me way back when? He goes, you have to remember, because when you have a clustered chart, no oppositions, early in life, no focus, later in life, all focus.
Wow, very interesting. Because I would think that, like, with all the planets, like, kind of, that would be focus, because your eyes would be, kind of like, your eyes are in your case up in the, like all of the outer things. In my chart, most of my planets are in the the right-hand side. So in other words,
The western side of the
yes,
chart.
meaning the western side. So things happen to me versus me initiating.
Yeah.
Okay, so that definitely happens. But I have 2 planets that are, and it's the moon and Jupiter, and thank God they're trine. Because otherwise, I mean, I would have just an influx of other people, like just always. And I mean, I still have that, like even
Sure.
now. Even now, I have a lot of that. So
when we're there's another chart that you want to bring up.
yeah,
a quad chart.
which would be the quadriwheel. And so this is, so if you guys are like going, oh no, this looks like a dartboard with a lot of glyphs on it. Okay, the middle part is my natal chart.
The very inner middle.
Correct. The one that is the layer, that is the second layer around the most inner chart, is my progressions, so that you can know what that is. And we'll explain progressions on another night, unless
Yes.
Nick already did. The next layer would be my solar arcs, which is all the planets traveling at the same distance as the progressed sun, but all of them do that, so that you can see themes. And then finally, on the outside wheel, we have the transits of that morning, on Thanksgiving morning. And again, I wanted to show that the biggest thing was that Saturn is on my midheaven, and you'll see that it's very close to a whole bunch of my progressions as well. So there's so much activation at my career, and then it's coming from the 6th house. And then there's also, you see that there's some of the trines, like with, that you saw in the chart earlier, because I wanted to see all those angles. I have Jupiter in Aries. You see, so again, opportunity, travel, 9th house, 10th house, like there's so much going on here. And so I just wanted to show like how that looked from a different way.
Yeah, and when she's talking about Saturn, if you actually look at the chart, and it would be basically in the outer wheel at 1 o'clock if it was a clock. That's
Yes.
what she means.
Yeah, right at the top.
And we have okay, we're not going to go to the next chart yet. So I want to
That's
talk
fine.
about for people out there, the planet Uranus and the planet Jupiter, and both of these, Jupiter is expansion, as Lisa said earlier, and Uranus is a break from tradition. But both planets have a freedom-seeking quality to them.
Yes.
Now, as Lisa was saying earlier, they're in the sign of Taurus. Both planets are retrograde, and Taurus rules your possessions, how you earn your money. It also rules intrinsic values, what's important to you, what's essential. All right. Now, this is something that astrologers have been looking at and following for quite a bit. And my viewers know that back in 2019, I started talking about the Capricorn alignments in the beginning of 2020.
Yes.
And myself and many astrologers were warning 2020 was going to be brutal.
Absolutely.
We all knew that. Now, let's talk more optimistically.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in April, around April 20th, Jupiter and Uranus are going to align. This is something that happens roughly every 13 to 14 years. So this is not an everyday occurrence. All right. So what does that mean for people out there? Well, it means on one hand, and here's my opinion, and Lisa will give hers, that because it's in Taurus, and Taurus rules your money, that this is going to have some kind of shift, expansion, or financial freedom coming up.
Yeah.
Something is going to be changed and expanding, and because we know Uranus happens all of a sudden like an earthquake, it is something that is, we would say, would be unpredictable, that you wouldn't see that coming.
Right.
And when you're talking about Uranus, which is Aquarius, one thing that you can predict about it is it's unpredictable.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
this alignment is happening.
And it's in a sign that, or I'm sorry, it
Yeah.
rules a sign by, in the modern astrology, that is squaring to the sign that it's in, meaning Taurus. Taurus, Aquarius, they're kind of at odds a little bit with viewpoints. One wants it to be the same all the time, and one does not.
Well, and that's why since Uranus has gone into Taurus, which goes back to 2019, that we're seeing a break from tradition. In fact, to put Uranus in Taurus has a lot to do with more women coming into power in business and politics.
Yeah, wow.
This is extremely humanitarian, and because Uranus is in Taurus, will be at 20 degrees, that we have a couple more years of Uranus in the sign of Taurus. So we're going to see more reform. And because Uranus was discovered around roughly at the time of the American Revolution, this has a revolutionary kind of quality to it. So look, the reality is, and this is the kind of stuff people ask, that 2024 is a presidential election year.
Yes.
Okay? And there's a lot
supposed to be. Anyway.
Supposed to be.
Supposed to
That's
be.
exactly right, because there's scuttlebutt.
There's scuttle
About, is there going to be an election? Are there going to be primaries? What's going to happen?
I do wonder, even if the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction may upset the apple cart with all of that, we might have a completely different idea come April, like what we're going to be dealing with in November. Because it's literally 6 months away, so it'll be on the same axis. It's very interesting.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Or the other thing it could do, because you can look at astrology from so many different angles, pun intended.
Pun intended.
Is that it could bring a candidate that is a dark horse that nobody ever saw. And I mean, the horse is out of the pack, and there's, you go to a horse race and you see one that's gradually just gaining.
Yeah.
Yep.
And nobody ever saw it happening. But they just,
So for you folks, the other thing is, because Taurus rules your finances, the second house in astrology, you can also expect changes in the way business is done, changes in finance, changes in currency. There are things that are talked about that are very positive, and Jupiter is optimistic that growth around money, finances, currencies we use, things that have been hoped for finally come to fruition. So it's going to be fascinating.
Well, I wonder, because Taurus actually, to me, even says that it has to be valuable, meaning on a level of usefulness. And lots of people are already talking about how non-useful money is right now. It's just loads of it going out, and just for basic stuff. And it seems like to me that there might be a lot more actual trade of service or goods with other people that might be happening then as well, not just money, currency. It could be something like a value assessment that's actual, really. So for instance, rather than everybody gravitating to the next cryptocurrency or whatever it is that's happening, they might gravitate to seeds for growing food.
Sure.
Or something practical. And I wonder if some kind of breakthrough with Taurus energy, with actually the things that you need, not just the means to get those things.
Sure. Well,
it's just interesting to me.
And Taurus is an earth sign.
It is. And so it could be that Uranus invents some way of making that more accessible to other people.
Well, and the other thing is, it could put a lot of what comes from the earth, minerals. What are gold and silver?
Right.
Minerals.
Yeah,
so it could be a lot more reliance, or bringing forward that, instead of paper money, so to speak, that we're using, minerals.
Who knows? Maybe Uranus, there may be things that invent, so we could make the gold or make the silver. I mean, I don't know. It could be even something like that.
Well,
or a different metal that is super valuable that everybody's oh my God, I gotta have it.
Sure. Sure.
Never know.
And of course, anything with Uranus is all the non-traditional things, it rules Aquarius, so that is wireless, Bluetooth, all the things that are sort of manufactured.
Oh, I think
so to
that there's
speak.
going to be huge tech changes, and I think there's going to even be more of those when those planets get to Gemini later, but we'll talk about that another time. We're going to keep it on 2024 right now.
Yeah, it's like, well, and remember, 2024, as we said last week, 2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 4 is 8.
Right.
So it's an
Right.
8-year, and that is about money, success, power, looking at things in a big way again. Let's and help bring the next chart up so we can take a look at that too. So this is a chart that is the chart of Los Angeles.
Okay.
All right? And we haven't done yours with the
With the solstice.
yes.
Yeah.
So we're gonna look at, so for those of us that live in Southern California, and this is when Los Angeles was founded, September 4, 1781, and what we see is looking at, and if you look to the right in the outer wheel, you see Jupiter and Uranus in the 7th house. Again, they are retrograde. And when they do come together in April, it'll be at the tail end of the 7th house, which means there's some kind of expansion in terms of partnerships, because 7th house is contract, partnerships, agreements, marriage.
And I didn't realize that Los Angeles had a time, for the actual event of the city. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
it's you and I both have different but very sophisticated astrology programs.
Sure.
Where there's a lot of research.
Yeah,
in
for
there.
sure.
Now, the thing that I like, the fact that Uranus and Jupiter are going to align in the 7th house in this chart of Los Angeles, because it's going to bring about the kind of return to visibility.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That is really, really important. The part that people will notice in the outer wheel in the 5th house, if you would look at, say, 5 o'clock on a clock, Saturn is going to be in the 5th house for the next 2.5 years. Now, the 5th house is supposed to be fun. It's dating, pleasure, sexuality, it's creativity.
Yeah.
But it's also the entertainment industry.
Right.
And so when
right.
you put Saturn in there, it does create a get back to work
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of mentality.
Yeah. I
which
mean,
it-
definitely some structure there.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is going to be good for Los Angeles, because we know that filming has been going on in a lot of other
Yes.
places.
Well, since pandemic particularly.
Right.
And I'm actually privy to know about lots of places that filming is happening in Montana, because I have friends that are like, oh, my friends have Airbnbs and actor so-and-so stayed there, and there's all kinds of stuff going on up there.
Right.
There's lots of filming going on up there, and they continue to make things, and there's now a set in the little tiny town that I have friends in that I'm going to be doing all of this stuff with after I get the
Oh, that's cool.
gardener certificate. Yeah.
So, but that's good. The Saturn in the 5th house is good for Los Angeles.
I think so too. And also, I saw that chart had a very heavy, it looked like all the workers, okay, so like employees, the 6th house, the
Right.
workers. Okay, I think about the SAG agreements and some of those. They're
Right.
still not, it's not quite done yet. Maybe we'll have some progress when the Jupiter Saturn happens with the contracts and renegotiation with that.
When Jupiter
To
and Uranus.
empower,
Yes.
to empower these people here. Because, and by the way, with that all being in Aries, they're mad.
Oh.
They're mad. And rightfully so, because the North Node is saying enough is enough, and it looks like there's a nodal return with all of that. So I thought I saw that, and I was just going to say that.
Well, there's an aspect in the chart that it's kind of hard to explain to the general public, but Pluto is just come off a square to the nodes of the moon,
Oh wow!
and this is going to create a level of relief.
Wow, that's hardcore
for Los
Wow.
Angeles, and that has been over the
Wow.
last 2 years. And you talk about restriction,
Yes.
and of course, Pluto is death and rebirth.
Yeah.
And so we're coming off of that going forward. And in Capricorn, as it goes into the 4th house this year, that's going to be a transformation of things where people live. That's going to have an effect on the homeless people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's Los Angeles is going to have a very fascinating, and I don't mean that in a weird way, a very fascinating 2024.
I think so too.
There is a transformation that
there's
will
something
happen.
very unique about Los Angeles, like that the rest of the country isn't experiencing, because LA is its own animal. Like, it really is.
Yeah, it is different.
Yeah, it's different, and so it's going to be interesting to watch that unfold.
Now, I want to bring up the next Los Angeles chart that you did.
Oh,
on
yeah.
the solstice.
This would be the year 2024.
Because you have an interesting viewpoint.
I
on
was
this.
taught
Yes.
by classical astrologers to just do the transits for whatever year that you want to do a forecast for. You would do it during the winter solstice of the year prior. So it would be, actually, I guess the summer solstice if you're in the southern hemisphere. But this would be for the winter solstice. So December 21st is when usually you run it. So you find whenever the 0 degree Capricorn sun is happening. And this is how it was done in ancient times. And then you would look at the seasons for the next, so for instance, when you do 0 Aries in March 21st, that relates to the next 3 months. And then the one in June 21st for the next 3 months, the one for September 23rd, 4th, whatever, whatever it is, for Libra, is the next 3 months. And then, but they usually look at the 0 Capricorn chart as the year in advance rather than using the January 1st, because it's more kind of artificial, with the Gregorian calendar, where this is actually based on the earth and the sun and its movements. So what I thought was really cool was that Leo was the rising in this chart.
Right.
Look at all of that 5th house, and that to me means going back to work with all of the stuff. Now, problematic though with the Pluto being in the 6th house, I still think that there is some top heavy examples of not really fully negotiating for the workers. I think that there's still some hidden stuff that needs to be brought to light. You see it's also squaring the moon, and hopefully maybe that'll be some enlightening coming on that. So I also noticed that the Neptune was in the 8th house, which tells me that we could get really spendy and just we got to watch our money. We could go into a place of where all of our money's gone if we're not careful and if we're not watching. I also saw that the Venus was down. It's in Scorpio. It's opposite Uranus. Okay, at that time. So I know that that's around the world, but it's very interesting that it's in the 10th, 4th house, which has to do with home work. And so I think that we're still seeing a lot of believe it or not, relationships that are still trying to figure out how to do this work at home, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's so
Right.
many, even the actors are working remotely. They have to have room to do all of this stuff, and they're, and it's making relationships kind of hard, and people can't afford places for extra room in their house or whatever because they don't go to an office anymore. So I see the struggle with that, and I know people that are actually dealing with that. Also, people that are in the industry, where they're, say for instance, making the costumes or whatever it is, and they have to do it at home because that's everything is at the home now. That might have to shift out and become something else. And again, that might be with some of the negotiations that I talked about earlier.
Sure.
But that's what I saw, overall.
Overall, we feel that it's going to be a good 2024. That's
Yes.
the bottom line, especially in Los Angeles.
Yes. Yeah. Not maybe that. Yeah, because Jupiter Uranus isn't so angular with maybe everywhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
and again, as Lisa said earlier, that your personal chart. It comes into play too, not just the general things that we're seeing. But the bottom line is we like what we see for the coming year, as opposed to in the past when we'd have to say, this is a problem, this is going to be a challenge. We like what we're seeing.
Oh, yeah. It's better than it has been. But I will say, like, it doesn't mean that we can get complacent, okay? Like, not, especially when Uranus is, like, at play here. But... Nick and I were talking about earlier how we can take these same transits and we can either, waller in them and like just, not want anything happening, or we can like be welcoming to do something else, to try something new, and especially with Uranus energy and Jupiter being the opportunity bringer, like embrace opportunity. I think that that's where we're going to find our happiness and success this year.
Right, exactly. Before we close up, I have a different kind of announcement to make, and I save this for the end when a lot more people are watching at the end than the beginning. And it's not the happiest of announcements, but I just want to let everyone know out there that watches that I learned today that a good friend of mine back in Pennsylvania has a very challenging illness, and he does watch the show periodically, Joe Merrick. And for those of you that, do hold people in your prayers, please hold Joe in your prayers, love and light, and send him, all the best so that he can work through this. And I actually told him today when we exchanged messages that I was going to mention him on the show tonight. So keep Joe in your thoughts, please. I know Joe from back in the 70s, played ball with him back in Pennsylvania, and he's a good guy and a good buddy. So thank you for that. We are... we've got a few minutes left. Lisa, before we close out, for anyone, whether you're here or in Montana, that would like a session with you, how can they get a hold of you?
So, I mean, there will be, like, limitations, like, basically on the weekends, okay, once I get up there, but I will have a place to do that. My website is Timing Magic, and my email address is timingmagic@gmail.com. You'll find me, and that's my Linktree tag as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And again, reminding you that this coming Saturday at the Newmont Center, we have an open house with refreshments and all kinds of goodies for sale. Yay! And at discount prices too, just in time for the holidays.
Just in time for the holidays.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, please watch Audrey tomorrow night on Conscious Mind Tripping.
Absolutely.
Her shows are riveting.
Yeah.
She does such an incredible job. And we are coming up with just a couple minutes left. Thank you to everyone out there, and especially, you don't see him, but thank you to Ed Hunt for manning everything.
Very much.
To do Conejo Valley Talk Radio is an undertaking, and it was something that, I thought of, Audrey thought of. She's the one that put the Conejo Valley, into the talk radio. And Ed and Becca Hennessy, really drive this bus. And you have no idea what it takes to create a professional look like this, and I must say I am so grateful because
and I'm in awe, honestly. Looking around, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's totally amazing. Thank you again, Ed. It's wonderful.
and it's so different from having to do it on our computers or our phone. We had a nice run on LA Talk Radio until COVID hit, and I think those words will ring on for a while until COVID hit. But that is behind us. Anyway,
let's do things different. It's called Uranus. It's called Jupiter.
Right.
Opportunities.
Well, I'm in Aquarius rising. I'm ruled by Uranus.
Oh, wow.
So,
very good.
I
have an angle at Uranus. I have it very near my nadir, very close to it, very angular. I'm very Uranian.
And if
it's trining my sun, too.
Right. And if you would like a reading with me, you can get a hold of me at the center at 818-865-8770. Come and visit everyone at the center. There's a lot of good practitioners there doing a lot of great things. And hopefully we'll see you this Saturday, if not sooner or later. Thank you again for watching.
Thank
Lisa,
you.
Thanks for coming on the show.
And thank you for having me.
You are absolutely welcome. You'll be on again soon. This has been Mainstream Metaphysics, and see you next week right here at Conejo Valley Talk Radio. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Take care of yourselves.
Brilliant, Ed. Thank you.
Good job, Ed.
This is Mainstream Metaphysics with your host, Nick Newmont.
Wow. Boy, that's totally up level.